Celebrating 10 years of trailblazing in ground support, Exceed marks a decade as your leading partner in ground support equipment leasing. At the forefront of both short-term and long-term leasing solutions, Exceed adapts to your unique operational needs. Whether you're ramping up for peak season or planning for long-term growth, we provide the right equipment to keep your operations running smoothly. This anniversary, we renew our dedication to empowering your ground operations with efficiency and innovation. With Exceed, you're equipped for success today and prepared for the challenges of tomorrow. Exceed, driving excellence on the ground year after year. Explore more at exceedgse.com.
This is John Pfister.
I'm Brian Yoder.
This is Mathias Moulinier.
This is Willie Martinez, and you are listening to GSE Podcast.
All right. Welcome to the GSE Podcast. I am Matt Weitzel, and I am here with Joe Davis from Oshkosh Aerotech, and we are at the Oshkosh facility in the command center. What is the command center?
It's the relentless continuous improvement area of our facility, where they do a lot of their meetings to talk about how we can improve some products and processes throughout the plant.
So there's been a lot of important conversations happening in this very place that we're sitting at today.
There has been, yes.
Man, we're going to continue that proud tradition here on the GSE Podcast. So, Joe Davis, what is your title here at Oshkosh Aerotech?
So my current title is a sales account manager. And I'm also holding the service manager's role at this time while we look for a new service manager.
Oh, okay. So from my understanding, and I could be incorrect, but you were previously a service manager here when it was JBT Aerotech.
That's correct. Yeah, I came to JBT at the time in 2018, March of 2018, as a service tech. The idea of moving into the sales account positions at that time through some older employees sticking around a little longer than I had hoped for anyway. I kind of had to sit back and wait to get my turn. So I ended up as a service manager for a while because they had a void there, and spent about 5 years doing that. And then the opportunity came about for me to move into the sales role, and the background from service to sales, they've had some success with that in the past, and they thought that would be a good line to tap back into. So it's been nice. It's been a welcoming change.
So can you kind of tell me a little bit about your history, how you got into ground support equipment? There's always an interesting story about how people end up in our industry.
Yeah, there is. So out of high school, I decided that, my father was an automobile technician for many years, had his own business. I knew I didn't want to work on cars. It wasn't something that was pleasing or satisfying at the end of the day. So I wanted to work on something bigger and heavier. So I went to school for aviation maintenance, went to the Pittsburgh Institute of Aeronautics, got my A&P license. While I was there, 9/11 happened. Not a whole lot of money coming out of school for me to make. At the time, I got married at 19, started my family. So coming out, getting a job offer for about $15 an hour to live in Washington D.C. was not going to cut the mustard,
No.
right? So I during school there was a de-icing company that had started up in Pittsburgh called Integrated De-icing Services. Well, I went out there, did an interview with them to be a de-icer. And spent about the next 16 years working for them, from starting out as a de-icer to the first mechanic that they had in the company, and then working my way up to the director of maintenance for them for a while. In about 2016, I decided I wanted to do something a little bit differently, but more so my wife decided she wanted to live in Florida. So came down to meet with JBT at the time. My wife had already picked out the house and the neighborhood we were going to live in about 5 years earlier than that. So she had this in the works for a while, and come down, met with JBT there, and took a job working for them as a contractor for a couple of years while I kind of figured out what I wanted to do. Then I went to work for him there, caught up to 2018 where we were at, where come down, worked for him full time as a technician for about a year, and then worked as the service manager for about 5 years, and now I'm in the sales role.
Wow. So did you ever do aircraft maintenance?
I never did aircraft maintenance. I still have the license. I still carry it around, but at the time it just wasn't lucrative, and now they're making about $80, $85 an hour to do it, so it's worth it, but it's sort of a dying breed thing. The mechanics, nobody wants to go to school to be a mechanic anymore.
Yeah. So you come out of aircraft maintenance school, and do you already know how to work on things such as de-icers and pushbacks and all the kinds of different equipment that you currently work on, or did that kind of come from working with your dad in the garage when you were a kid? Or
That came from tinkering. No, there was no skill set. There's no school you can go to work on ground support equipment, right? There's nothing out there that teaches you how to work on a de-ice truck or a tractor or anything like that. The aviation school was nice because it had a lot of electrical involved with it, which is a lot of what most of the modern day equipment is. It's all inputs and outputs and PLCs, and if you can understand the flow of the electricity as it's meant to go through the machines, that certainly helps you with any type of machine that you're working on. And then just the mechanical ability came from, constantly wrenching in the garage with my dad's from about 9 years of age to, even now when I go back to Ohio for the summer, first thing we do is we go tear something apart together and play with it, right? So there's no official schooling that happens for that, but I like to tear stuff apart and see how it works,
Yeah. So even though you're the service manager, you know how to work on all of Oshkosh's equipment.
Yeah, I still do. Just last week I was in Toronto working on some equipment up there, and it's hard to not get my hands dirty. I enjoy fixing it. I enjoy watching the customers, the look on their face that I'm able to fix it for them. It's a bit of sense of pride that not only can I sell it to you, but I can fix it, make it work for you, and I can understand why it's not working for you.
That's awesome. And it's got to be helpful too, you being the old service manager, now you're kind of like the interim service manager, to be able to have these techs all across the country and I guess the world, right?
Yeah. There's 16 of them across the United States that they service. Out of this building, we service as far north as you can go, Canada, and as far south as you can go in South America. So, and everything east and west, right? So
yeah,
there's 16 technicians, and they're scattered. We have 4 that are local to Orlando, and the other 12 are somewhere throughout the United States. Most of them typically become centralized around the Midwest area. We find that farm kids are about the best niche that fits our build for what we're looking for service technicians, as far as providing customers with that culture that we have and that presence to their ability to fix the equipment, right? So
yeah. So you're a Midwest kid and you believe in the Midwest mentality.
Yeah, I'm definitely a Midwest guy. I like the small town feel, and I always tell my wife I was meant to be a farmer. I don't know how this happened.
Yeah, but it's got to help. What I was going to say was that it's got to help just those technicians knowing that you also know how to do their job.
Yeah,
right. Makes life a lot easier. They can trust you a little bit more, stuff like that. So, where are all these technicians located then? You said you have how many in North America?
There's 16 total in North America.
Yeah.
So you've got one in Seattle, one in Oregon. You've got one in Phoenix, one in Texas. You've got 4 or 5 in Ohio and West Virginia. They're total in that little cul-de-sac that I like to call the Midwest. 2 in Georgia, 1 in South Carolina. So they are pretty spread out. We try and do that so that we can deliver the fastest response to our customers, if we have to move one of those guys in or out. And they spend a lot of time in their suitcase. Those guys are on the road every day of the month.
Yeah. Yeah. And so what are they doing? So I'm guessing they're doing commissioning of units and they're doing any kind of like unit down type of situation?
Yeah. So as a service manager, from the moment that the piece of equipment leaves our factory, that equipment is responsibility for the life cycle of the service manager. So the service technicians, that also falls under them, right? So they do everything from commissioning that piece of equipment to 30 years from now working on that piece of equipment, whether it's breakdown maintenance while it's under warranty, or if there's a problem that's systematic throughout the industry for as far as our equipment goes, like a rash of bad pumps or something like that, then we go out and we try and get ahead of those things and service those things. Because you're learning it off of one customer, you try and stay ahead of it on the next customer. And then, they'll go out and they'll do service revenue where we have regular customers that pay us to go out and do routine maintenance PMs on their equipment to make sure that they have that stamp of approval from the factory on it.
And then what about training?
So training, there's no official training that we have internally just yet. We're working on building something like that. That's been something that's been on my radar since I came to JBT was, day one when you hire a technician, what happens with them, right? So what I liked doing was, because I came in as a technician, I'm going, okay, what training are you going to give me, right? When I realized quickly that that was probably one of the biggest areas for us to improve, the customer care director and I got together and said, hey, we got to come up with a training department, and we've got to come up with not only a training department for external for our customers, but internal for our own people. And so now what happens whenever we hire a service technician, the first 6 months of that technician's life with us is spent tied to a senior service technician and or other people that are within that department or departments to teach that person how to do their job. So they'll get hired, then they come in first month, and we have our online training, Oshkosh Aerotech training, that they go through all of the different videos, the how-tos like setting up pumps, setting up blowers, setting up all these different systems on the trucks or tractors or pieces of equipment. And then once we get through kind of all that and all the HR paperwork, then we tie that technician to the hip of a senior technician, where they go out and they spend the next 4 or 5 months on whatever jobs that senior tech's working on. They also experience those same things before we just cut them loose and let them go out on their own.
Okay. Yeah. And then what about just training for customers? I know that we have some technicians at Exceed that have been a part of your training programs down here. Do you have anything to do with the training for the customer side?
Yeah. The service manager in the past would work all the trainings in every year. There's some trainings that we hold at the factory. We usually start those in May and they run until September, sometimes October even. And those would be what we consider our in-house classroom trainings, where we bring the customers in, depending on the class skill set of who's attending that class or who's signed up for our customers, we'll drill down pretty deep into that piece of equipment specifically. So, 1 week it might be tractors, the next week it might be de-icers. And those classes are given by our service technicians, usually our most senior technicians that can understand and read the room and have an ability to train, while also kind of understanding how deep do we go with this thing. Do we go all the way down into the engineering specifications and breaking down pumps and solenoids and valves, or do we kind of keep it higher level because this is an entry level skill set of a room? And so we do that with our customers, and then we also do on-site training with our customers, where we'll either send out a service technician and do that same classroom type thing in their own environment, or we will do more of a hands-on type of training for like an operations group, and it'll train the trainer type of thing with using those same service technicians. And or now we'll use our training department that's headed up by Derek.
Okay, so let's say that out of your top 50 customers for Oshkosh equipment, how many of those customers would send somebody to one of your training classes those May through September?
Well, so you always have your same ones, right? So there's a lot of great customers that take really good advantage of that training, and there's customers that should take a lot better advantage of that training, right? Every year you've got your same 4 or 5 customers that are saying, hey, we buy this piece of equipment. We're going to make sure our guys come down and learn, whether it's they've been buying that piece of equipment for a year or they've been buying it for the last 30 years. And they religiously send their technicians, and they'll even do refresher courses with, if a guy was here 5 years ago, they might send them down and next year say, hey, all right, your turn back in the rotation. So of the top 50, I would say you're getting 50% of that, 60% of that's coming. But you're probably talking about 2 to 250 people per year that come through that training.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
So do you notice like a correlation between the customers who send send their people here to do the training and then less service calls from those?
Absolutely. And you know what it is, true, is a lot of it is the policy, like internal, our procedures and policy. We highlight, hey, look, when you're having a problem with the piece of equipment, this is the path you want to take because it's the fastest path to get you the best resolution. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times, put my sales hat on for a moment, I sell a piece of equipment to you, right? I may not tell you that, hey, when you're having a problem with that piece of equipment, here's what you want to do with it, right? So as the service side of me, I'm going, hey, listen, before I sell it to you, should you have some problems, here's the best path to go so we can get resolution quickly for you, because downtime, it kills everybody's pocket, right? If you're not pushing aircraft, you're not de-icing aircraft with that Oshkosh piece of equipment, you're losing money. If you're losing money, you're not happy, right? Mm-hmm. So it's I like that piece of it again because it goes back to the service side of me where I've always got a service heart. I always used to joke with the sales guys that they would sell the first piece of equipment and the last piece of equipment, and I'm going to sell everything in between as a service manager.
Yep, that's 100%. I think that's a completely accurate statement.
And I still believe that today. I can still sell the first one and the last one as a sales guy, but everything else in between is going to be sold by how we service that piece of equipment after.
So let's say that I'm listening to this podcast right now and I'm one of these 50, 25 customers out of your 50 that I don't go to any of your trainings. How do I get involved in those?
Yeah, so we send out an email blast to all of our customers. It usually comes from our marketing team that tells when these trainings are. And right now, if you buy Oshkosh equipment, the training is free for you to attend. The classroom fee is waived, and it's a really good training that happens. Usually Monday's a travel day. You travel down on Monday. You got Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We're just going to drill into you. We're going to take you through. You're going to see on the line how the equipment's being put together. And that's a big advantage for a mechanically minded individual, is to see, hey, this thing's being put together in these different stations and these different pieces. It helps them kind of connect those dots in their mind, right? And so those customers can look for that email blast or reach out to their sales account manager and say, hey, look, I want to sign up for this training, and what are the training dates and what are you offering this year?
Yeah, I heard about it on the GSE podcast, and I wanted to come and check out the training. Right now,
That's
I'm going
right.
to really help you sell this because and correct me if I'm wrong, but do you all provide lunch?
We do. We provide lunch.
There we go. Sold.
Yeah, we provide breakfast, and then on Wednesday evening we take you out and we have a sort of a social hour at a local restaurant, and we get to know you a little bit and spend some time with you.
See, there you go. Now, I mean, your classes are going to be packed. You're probably going to have to add extra classes now, and I apologize for that on right now.
That's a problem we welcome.
Okay, so you've got 16 people around the globe, service technicians. They're out there commissioning units now. If I buy a brand new C-15 from Oshkosh and it gets delivered to JFK, am I responsible for that commissioning, or is that something that Oshkosh can help me out with? How does that look?
No, that's definitely our responsibility. The service department is the last set of hands to touch that piece of equipment before it's yours, right? So yeah, you've bought it, we've delivered it to you. Now you're going to get our service technician on site. They're going to commission it, put it all together for you, and they're going to spend some time with your user group to say, hey, this is what button does this is what button does that. They're going to work with your service technicians if you've got them available for them, saying, hey, look, these are some of the commonly known problems we see throughout the industry with these pieces of equipment, from a misunderstanding of how it's supposed to function to this is your key areas. You want to make sure you lubricate these things. So we're going to spend time with those. We build that into the commissioning, and then that service technician, once they're satisfied there, they move on to the next location, next job.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, good. Yeah, I know that Exceed, we buy a lot of Oshkosh equipment. You all have commissioned a lot of units for us. So what unit does it start and end kind of with commissioning? Does that make sense? So in other words, I think you commission a V1200, right? Mm-hmm. But you don't commission a B250.
Correct. Unless the customer asks for us to commission a B250, then we would. So that's on the account manager. They would put that on the iPod whenever they sold it, saying, hey, look, this is maybe their first piece of equipment in this location. We're going to go ahead and send a technician with it to commission it. While there's nothing to physically assemble, there might be that training piece of it that you can make sure that the customer is welcome
So
to.
let's say that I was really tired of my manufacturer X piece of equipment, and I decided to get myself a really high quality Oshkosh pushback, but my guys have never seen that before. You're going to come in there and schedule them out to train them and show them, do the regular PMs, all that kind of stuff. Like how to do all that.
Absolutely. And I think that sets the difference between us and the brand X, right? We want to make sure that you understand how to use that piece of equipment to 100% of its capability, while making sure that you're following your own safety procedures and practices so that you're not putting yourself in any harm's way.
That's awesome. All right. So, and then let's talk a little bit about telematics and how that's kind of changed the landscape of service.
Yeah. So, as you know, our equipment comes with IOPS.
Real quick, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but can you tell me where IOPS also like starts and begins as far as it being standardized onto your pieces of equipment?
Yeah. Yeah. So, IOPS is standard on our equipment for the term of the warranty, basically, is what we do. So, if you buy a 2-year warranty, you get it for 2 years for standard. If it's 3 years, it's 3 years.
But it's not on every piece of equipment, right? So it's on starting at what? 650, 950, and 1200 all have IOPS standard.
That is correct.
But I can have it put onto a B250 at additional cost.
That is correct.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
And then I'm guessing all the Commander series, the Rangers, that's all standard.
And the de-icers, it's all standard.
And de-icers.
Yep.
Okay.
That's correct.
Awesome. And the B80 and the B80E, those you could have that, I'm guessing, integrated into those as well, but it's not going to be standard.
That is correct.
Okay. And then can you remote diagnose some issues that customers are having with like a C15, C30 type of thing out in the field?
So interestingly enough, we've spent, last 2, 3, 4 years now, sort of just developing the IOPS, right? And understanding what's going to be our best utilization of it. Is it a data collection point for the customer and for us? Is it a troubleshooting tool in the field for us and our customers? And, I think the answer to all of that is going to be, at the end of the day, a conglomeration of all of it. Just last week, we did utilize IOPS to fix a unit in Chicago. My technical supervisor and I did with our service technician. So he was working on a B650 tractor in Chicago, and he kept telling us that the value he was seeing didn't make sense to the value that we wanted to see. And so it's our own guy, right? And we're kind of having trust issues with them. And so we remote into the unit through IOPS, and we're looking at the value that we know we should be seeing. And so we're using it sort of as a training exercise, saying, hey, no, you're taking the measurement in an incorrect place. We're asking you to take it here, and that's why you're not seeing what we should be seeing. At the end of the day, it ended up being, of all things, a wire was pushed in too far to the terminal where the destination is. And so we weren't getting the full voltage on the circuit that we needed. But we were able to track that down using IOPS with our own team. So there is going to be some good advantages and values to that as we continue to develop it, and also making sure that the customers understand how to utilize it, right? That's the big part of it. Is we've always said that if we just had a good set of hands on the other end of the phone, we could fix anything. We could walk somebody through it. In this case, we had a good set of hands, but he just wasn't giving us the number that we knew we should see.
Yeah.
And so we were able to utilize IOPS to kind of verify that and check our own homework, right?
Yeah, it's really interesting. So with software updates, can software updates be downloaded from the cloud now that we have IOPS, or are those still kind of a thing where you got to be there physically to update software?
Current day, we still need to be on site. The goal is to get to that. The goal is to do remote into them and software updates and uploads. The hard part is around airports, it's difficult with Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
And so there's just, everybody has their Wi-Fi. Everybody has their own Wi-Fi. And so it's like a vacuum. You take a cup, start sticking straws in it. Before you know it, you put a straw in for everybody that has Wi-Fi, and you can't fit any more straws in the cup. That's the problem with uploading remotely on equipment around an airport. Is it's hard to get that connection bandwidth. And the bandwidth, and it's hard to keep that bandwidth for the time that it may take to upload that software.
Okay.
But our goal is to get there, and I have no doubt we will.
Okay. So that's in the future. It's a future state type of thing. What are you thinking on that? We're thinking a couple of years?
I would think a couple of years or less.
Okay.
I really do. I think that it's just a matter of how much money do you want to put in it to get it done quicker.
Yeah. How's electric equipment? Because you all are doing electric C15, you're doing some electric pushbacks. How's that going to change service?
It's changed a lot. Obviously, you introduced a piece of equipment into a field where not only are the technicians having to re-understand how to work on it, but from an operator standpoint, you got to train them. And so we find ourselves training more bad habits than we find ourselves fixing dead equipment. And what I mean by that is, you might get an operator, it's toward the end of their shift, right? And they take that piece of equipment and it's, hey, throw it on a charger, or do I hurry up and beat the traffic that's going to happen in the next 10 minutes? And so they leave it sit there, and then the next guy comes in on their shift, and now they're driving it, and then it dies, right? So it's, okay, well, it died, but why did it die? So, well, it died because it wasn't charged, right? And so we find ourselves, I would say, of the 25 calls that I get a day from a customer related to electric equipment, 20 of them are either a misunderstanding of how the electric equipment is supposed to work, or it's a dead battery.
Yeah. And dead batteries, from my understanding, are not great.
No.
Like very bad. So now with IOPS, can you all check levels and send notifications to the customers saying, this is so far away from the charger and you're at 5% battery or anything like that? I mean, is there anything that you all can do to help out on those kind of situations?
In fact, that's what I was meeting with some customers in Canada last week around that specifically was, hey, look, we need to start setting up alerts that says, look, you're asking for an operator to plug it in. That's probably not going to happen. But if you start sending alerts to ops managers and general managers and leads or supervisors, you're going to start seeing those problems disappear. And here, we can do it for you. It's already there. It's a data point that we already collect. I remember a few years ago, the big thing was DEF fluid, right? Everybody's running out of DEF fluid because EPA said, hey, you got to regulate and you got to put DEF fluid, anything on units larger than 75 horsepower. Well, it was the same issue then as it is now with electricity. Everybody was running the units out of DEF fluid, and then what happens is it sets a code, and then Cummins has to come out, and they have to scan the engine in order to put it back into service. So we started tracking, at that time, quantities of quarter of a tank of DEF fluid is almost a no-go, and you'd send an alert out to the customer saying, hey, listen, we're going to send you an alert saying, hey, you're at 25%. We need you to take that vehicle and add fluid to it. That's what we're doing with electricity for these customers, saying, hey, listen, you tell us where you're comfortable with, and we'll tell you where we would be comfortable with you, saying, hey, 25% is you're going to get an alarm. At 20%, we're going to say, hey, here's another alarm, and you're just going to keep getting it repeatedly until you satisfy that alarm.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. And it's only going to help the customer. I mean, because you sitting here today, it's not going to affect your operation, right? It's for them, and the technology's out there to be able to provide that to them.
Absolutely.
So, all right. Well, we've gotten to the point of the podcast where now I have to ask you about a great GSE story. And I'm sure you're an avid listener and you already knew this was coming. So you've already kind of got something prepared. So what is your best GSE story?
My best GSE story?
And it doesn't even, it can be from IDS or it can be Oshkosh. It's just got to be solid GSE story.
Man, I tell you that I've been around a little while. People don't realize that I'm not that old, but I think over half of my adulthood has been spent in GSE. So I would say one of the coolest things I've ever got to do for GSE, I was working for IDS at the time, Integrated De-icing Services, and the Turkish military was in Pittsburgh. And also there was, I don't know what the event was that was going on, but the Russian Antonov was there. There was a C-5 there, and there was a Turkish plane there, a military aircraft. I've been working for IDS for maybe like 2 years, right? And at the time, the founder was also there in the buildings. His name was Larry Hopkins. And it was a very competitive thing, de-icing airplanes amongst us college guys at the time. We all kind of went to school together. They hired probably 30 of us at the time. And then we ended up becoming like leads and managers of this company eventually. And even the vice president is still there. He and I were college roommates. So these aircraft had sat on this on the tarmac for about 2 weeks collecting accumulation. And every day it was, hey, the planes are going to be dispatched today so they can leave. But everybody wanted to de-ice these planes to say, hey, I've de-iced a C-5 or hey, I de-iced the Antonov. So we would travel to school, which was about an hour and 15 minutes from the airport, past the airport. I would travel from Ohio, past the airport in Pittsburgh, go to school all day, come back from school, stop at the airport, work 4, 5, 6 hours, till 11 o'clock at night, drive back home, do it all again the next day. But every day where it's like, okay, when's the plane going to leave? Because I want to either skip class or I want to make sure I stay here so that I don't miss this opportunity. And I tell you what, we spent 2 weeks sleeping on the floor at the ice house. It got to the point where the owner went and bought bunk beds and put them in the back in this FBO. And that was how they started like the hot bunks, because us 4 or 5 guys were saying, hey, we're not leaving because we want to be the ones that get to de-ice that. And I can't remember the exact date that it was that it left, but it was an evening flight that they decided to go ahead and dispatch it. And that thing had 2 feet of snow and accumulation and ice built up on these wings. And we went through, I was using a Tempest de-icer at the time, older Tempest 2 de-icer, like a 2005, 2006. I had to refill my truck, and I did the aft side, the co-pilot tail. I did just that section in the back half of the wing. I had to refill my truck 4 times, and it held 1,800 gallons of Type 1, and I refilled 4 times to de-ice that quadrant of that plane. And it was so cool because when we got almost done de-icing it, this little guy popped out of the back, like at the tail section, and that was how he did the visual to see if the tail was clean to know if they could take off. So I got to de-ice the C5. The next day, the Antonov got to leave, and we got to de-ice it as well. So we spent 2 weeks living on the floor, but we got to de-ice the C5 and the Antonov, and the Turkish airline didn't go off for a couple more days. But that was probably one of the coolest things I got to do.
Yeah, that's a pretty awesome story.
Yeah.
2 feet of snow is crazy. Like, I can't even believe that they let it sit for that long. I'm guessing that is not something that happens very often.
No, that's typically not. I'm not sure if it was a maintenance there or what was going on, but it was weird just to see 2 of those planes in the same location.
Yeah.
At the same time.
Yeah. That's pretty cool. Well, I think we're going to bring in Patrick for a minute here. Patrick, if you want to sit down and join us. This is Patrick McDowell, and he was on, I think, episode 3 of the GSE podcast. If I'm not, am I correct in saying that you're episode 3?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was episode 3. So, gosh, was that a year and a half ago? I'm trying to remember just how long ago that was. But I was only probably 6 months into my career here. Back then it was JBT, maybe 9 months into that JBT career.
Yeah. Yeah, it was pretty early on.
Yeah, it was just a baby.
I don't know why you had me on the podcast early, because compared to everybody else that you've had on the podcast from JBT, now Oshkosh, has got way more experience, than I did at that time.
I think what ended up happening there was, and I don't know if the story will be interesting or not, but at that time, nobody really knew what the GSE podcast was. I wanted to get 3 episodes done before I even launched, because I didn't want somebody to discover the GSE podcast and go, oh, I really love this, and see that there's only 1 episode. They listen to 1 episode, and then that was it for another month or whatever. So right. I wanted to launch with 3, because if you ended up liking it, then you'd have some content to listen to. So I launched with 3 episodes.
I was the third option.
No, we're not there. We're not there yet. So when I asked at that time, JBT leadership, who do you want to be on it? Because JBT, Oshkosh, whatever you want to say it is right now, that's obviously Oshkosh, but back then it was JBT. Who do you want to be on this podcast? They didn't even know what the podcast was, because it wasn't even in existence yet. So they said, well, your account manager for Exceed is Patrick McDowell, and so he should be on it. And I was like, okay.
Who's this guy?
He's our account manager, but is that who you want to be representing, Oshkosh? And they were like, I guess. So that's how you got chosen. And listen, thank God, because it ended up being a fantastic episode. It's in the top 5 of listens. I mean, I don't think it's because you're just a third podcast. I think it's a really interesting podcast. You have a good radio voice. And yeah, so it all ended up working out great.
Hold on. You said I got a good radio voice. Why am I not a TV personality, Matt? What are you trying to say?
I don't know. Your dad was, and he seems to have had a good career. I don't know why you didn't make it. Maybe that's something you should talk to him about. But anyway, so thanks for joining us again. Thanks for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're talking about service, but we also wanted to talk a little bit, get an update from Oshkosh on sales. I know that since my last conversation with you all, we talked about the AMP cart, so we're all good on that. But we've introduced the B80 and the B80E, and then also JetDock. Yeah. So I don't know who wants to handle the B80. Currently, right now, Exceed really likes the B80. We came and we test drove it here. We've seen it in action. We loved it. So we went ahead and purchased some. So we have some gas units as well as some B80 electric units in stock at the time of this recording. So we've invested in them. I think they're first couple off the line.
Yeah.
And at the new line, like official Oshkosh logo on them and everything else. So who wants to tackle that one?
Yeah, I'll take it. I think you're going to see the B80 out there in the market pretty quickly. There's a lot of there's two large customers right now that are looking to do a fleet replacement of their tractors, right? And I think that's going to lead to some real good opportunities for the B80. And the B80, when we got that piece of equipment, when we bought the intellectual properties for it, it was ours, but it wasn't ours, right? And now it's ours. We've been able to make some changes, some modifications to it. You got a 5,000-pound tractor that's got independent suspension on the front. You've got leaf springs on the back. You got disc brakes all the way around it, powered by electric, powered by a little Ford engine, gas if you want it. It's a really neat piece of equipment, and it's very, I want to say, agile, right? And
It is, yeah.
It gets from A to B quick. We find customers saying, "Hey, that's a little bit too fast. We need to turn that thing down."
Mm-hmm.
And we're expecting our first shipment here we're building those over in Chennai as well as here. We're expecting our first shipment from Chennai in the next week or two. That's going to have some opportunities on there for some demos that we've kind of, as sales account managers, we plotted those out to see where we want to get those into the hands of some of our other customers and say, "Hey, look, tell us what you think about it." I think that's one of the biggest things for Oshkosh is we're constantly looking for our customers' feedback as to how to improve the product. And we heard everybody kind of loud and clear whenever we bought that product, and we've made some really quick, inexpensive changes to it that improve the reliability and quality of that product. And I'm pretty excited to see where it goes, especially when you talk about customers looking to buy 100 or 200 of them, right? So that's a big win for us if we can get them in their hands.
How is it from a service perspective working on the B80?
Well, and that's the thing. See, I have a technician out working on a couple of them now this week in Chicago, and that's the first that we've really had to work on them in a long time because for the most part, we were buying them. They were still being produced in Indiana, right? And then we would service them as needed. Now it's our product. We're buying, we're building, and we're servicing and all that. And they just, aside from your user group smashing into a curb or they become bumper cars out there, right?
Yeah.
Aside from those things, they're very reliable pieces of equipment that get the job done, and we don't have a lot of high call volume on them from a service standpoint.
Yeah, and the ride is incredible.
Yeah,
I will say that.
That's the biggest selling point, right? If you're an operator. I mean,
yeah.
The full suspension of the B80 is what makes you love it. One of the biggest things that I did when I put it out on demo with a certain customer was, first off, we put it on a lift, got them up underneath it, took a look and see and get feedback from them on what they'd like to see from a maintenance and technical perspective. Ease of use for a technician to get their hands in and get dirty and do some PM type stuff. But also we set up an obstacle course. We threw like wheel chocks out there everywhere. And we said, look, one concern was ground clearance. We threw wheel chocks out there and ran them over left and right, and they just popped out the back with no problems instead of dragging or anything like that. And where there's other products in the market where it's just going to drag wheel chalk, it's going to get caught in something, it's going to, so forth. So we've put it through its paces enough at this point to figure out it is a good quality product, like Joe said. And now that we have it in-house fully, we can support it as one of our products. And you'll see the quality uptick in that as well, because when we were contracting that out, when we bought the rights to it, we were still partnering with that person or that company to build it for us. So we didn't have our grasp on it fully at that point. Now we do.
Yeah.
So the controls are there, the quality's there. And like Joe said, we're starting to see an uptick in demand for that product as well. So
yeah. So, well, thanks for going over that with me. You want to talk a little bit about JetDock and what that is?
Yeah, absolutely. So over the past 5 years, and if you listen to episode 3, you'll know which company I'm talking about. I'll plug that so you have to go back and listen
there
to
you
it.
go.
But,
I like it. Now you're thinking.
Yeah. So for the past 5 years, we partnered with a strategic customer of ours to develop JetDock, which is autonomous docking of commander loaders and soon to be Ranger loaders and other products to the aircraft. A lot of the requirements that we had with that customer was you're not putting any stickers or decals on the aircrafts. You're not putting RFIDs or any kind of insignia on the aircraft. It's got to be truly autonomous. And over the past 4 or 5 years, we've been developing that technology. And we're at a point now as Oshkosh Aerotech to where we can actively sell JetDock, and we're getting it off the ground for that strategic partner. We've got all the feedback we need to get in terms of the usability of it as an operator. From a technician maintenance standpoint, it's very simple. If a LiDAR stops working, you got to replace the LiDAR. There's not a whole lot to that standpoint. But as an operator, and I can speak for myself as someone who is in the industry but never worked in the industry as an operator, I had never docked a loader to an aircraft in my life before. The first time I ever did it was using JetDock, and I did it 10 times over perfectly. You literally just have to stand there and hold a couple buttons, and the loader does it all for you. And that sounds scary, right? Especially for someone who's never docked a loader to an aircraft before, and you're kind of start squinting your eyes and hoping for the best, but expecting the worst. But that loader stops within inches of the aircraft and never touches it. And with that, we also have ground level object detection from a safety perspective. So if someone comes walking up next to a loader, the loader's going to recognize someone entering that zone, and it's going to stop before that person gets to the loader. So there's no potential for someone getting run over because you don't see them. Or if some object just happens to blow with the wind, we know the ramps are pretty active places. The loader's not going to hit anything. So you have object detection on the ground level. You got object detection and autonomous docking at the top of the bridge as well. And it's a dream, man. It really is. It's a technology that I've told my leadership internally that I think this will be a standard on loaders one day. It's not, for me, it's not something that's going to be an option in the future of GSC. It's just going to be something you buy with a loader, because from a training perspective for ground handlers and airlines alike, it makes things so much easier. And let's say for whatever reason, JetDock disables itself while in the process of docking to that aircraft, it automatically goes into, I call it old school mode, right? You're just going back into your normal traditional loader operations at that standpoint. You don't have to back up from the aircraft. You don't have to do anything special.
It's not going to stop your operation.
It's not going to stop your operation. So if JetDock were to fail or detect somebody at the ground level or whatever the situation might be, you can go straight back into manual operations without even blinking.
That's nice.
So yeah, so it's just one of those things that we're really pushing in 2025 now that we're in a comfortable place with it. We have validated a number of aircrafts in the industry. The technology, based on the door size and height off the ground, it recognizes what aircraft and what door of that aircraft it is. So you don't have to manually input anything. It's going to take you through a checklist of settings in terms of, are you in drive? Is the parking brake on? And are you in all these modes correctly before it allows you to process and move forward with docking to that aircraft? And it's one of those things that talking about it, you kind of understand it. Seeing it is another whole ball game. It's truly impressive technology, especially when you're talking about something the size of a Commander 30 approaching a 777, right? And so I think we're going to have some marketing materials come out here pretty soon. We just had Oshkosh corporate marketing down here doing some video shoots and whatnot of some of the technology. So we're hoping to broaden that understanding with the industry, right? And we have a lot of customers and airlines alike coming in and asking questions about it now, and it's really drawing some serious interest, and because they see the value. Yeah, I mean, is it an investment? 100% is an investment. I mean, there's no question about it, but it's also an insurance policy, because it will drastically decrease aircraft strikes, and it takes some of the human decision making out of it, sure, but some of that's for the better and some of that's for, it all depends how you look at it, but it's definitely technology that works. It's technology that's going to be around for a long time, and we are very happy with where it is today.
Talk about that the return to home feature with it, Patrick, as well.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, once you engage JetDock on the loader to approach the aircraft, it remembers the path that it took to get to that door and dock with the aircraft. Once you are done with the unload and load, and you re-engage JetDock while docked to that aircraft, it will follow the exact path that it took to get to that aircraft to repark itself where it came from.
Wow. So
if you have dedicated parking spots near that gate, whatever the situation may be, whether it's a passenger or cargo operation, if it's close enough and perpendicular enough to the plane, it will dock from that spot and it will park itself in that spot. Obviously, it depends on what your setup is on the ramp, right? But yeah, it's truly a wonder in terms of, I'm nowhere near smart enough to tell you the ins and outs and the coding and all that fun stuff. But from an operations standpoint and from a sales account manager standpoint, it's an easy technology and product to sell when you bring customers in, to our test track here, or you take them out to a ramp to see it, and they're sitting there going, oh, wow, like you're within 3 inches of that door perfectly. And you can tell it, you want this loader center? Do you want to offset left? Do you want to offset right? Do you want to have a 6-inch gap, a 4-inch gap, or a 2-inch gap in between this loader and the aircraft? And it will do it. It's impressive. That's all I can say about it.
Yeah, it's amazing technology. Yeah, thanks for filling me in. Can it be retrofit?
So yes, it can be. Is it an easy job for Joe and his team to probably do that in the field? No, probably not.
Okay.
I would definitely recommend it in terms of new equipment purchases. There's a couple different ways that you can invest in JetDock into your future fleet, and we have one option which is called JetDock Ready, and we have another option that's JetDock Complete. So if you were to come to us and say, "Hey, Joe, Patrick, we want to buy some new Commander loaders or even a Ranger loader," we want to start investing in JetDock, but we're not quite ready for it tomorrow. Let's say we can go with the JetDock Ready package, which basically allows us to pre-wire and pre-harness everything, but you're not going to
that's a good option.
Exactly. So, but the only thing you're going to be missing is the LiDAR hardware, which is obviously sensing everything around the loader and sensing the aircraft doors, and then the main control panel. So outside of that, you're getting all of the nuts and bolts and the internals, so that Joe over here doesn't have to send his guys to wire everything, and it makes it a lot simpler to install in the field. So you're investing at a fraction of the price today, so that in the future you can do the rest of that investment to install JetDock.
Is this on internal combustion and electric?
Yeah.
So currently we've only installed it on combustion.
Okay.
There is projects in the works right now for the electric. I don't foresee that being a problem. It's really not changing the basics of the movement.
No, yeah, because you're using a lot of the same
equipment,
componentry. You know, one of the biggest pieces to the puzzle is the axles. You know, that's why it makes it harder to retrofit an older piece of equipment, is because you've got to change out all the drive axles and everything. So that's the big money consuming piece of it.
Okay.
And then, you know, obviously the harnesses, and this is time to do it. So there would be a cutoff as to when you could retrofit based on, you know, just different iterations of what was used at the time. So, you know, if you go back to 2005, you've got a Commander loader. You go to 2006, you got a Commander I loader, right? So then you know, between 2006 and 2015, you've got some different componentries and pieces and parts in there that may not be completely retrofittable to that JetDock. So it may be a cutoff at a certain period. I'm not sure where that cutoff lies at right off the top of my head, but I'm thinking it's somewhere in that 2015 and up area. And again, I don't know that the cost would be worth the payoff, right? In the end, to retrofit anything beyond that.
Yeah, but we have done certain situations where we've bought older loaders in that are in the I series, like Joe mentioned, into the factory. We've done a full rebuild on them, just like a normal refurb rebuild job, and then added JetDock to them as well. So it doesn't always have to be a new unit, right? But doing it in the field versus doing it in the factory, if it is a rebuild or a retrofit situation, there's possibilities. All you got to do is ask, right? And we'll be more than happy to assist in any way we can.
Yeah, that's great. No, I appreciate you filling me in. I just had a secondary question here. So what is electric pushback? So we have a B250 electric, and then how far do you all go up at this?
So right now
moment?
we have, and Joe could probably tell you a lot about electric pushbacks right now. We go everywhere between a 250 and a 950. So this year we're currently manufacturing B950s as electric units now. So we're getting our feet wet and really getting into that heavy wide body space, right? I'm not sure we'll ever see a B1200 electric. I
wouldn't be so sure. I wouldn't be so sure.
I'm sure we'll get there, but that's a lot of batteries to stack. But yeah, we're definitely excited about where the electric pushbacks are going for us as a company. I can say for myself and the accounts that I manage, we're having a lot of success, especially for me. I've sold more of the narrow body pushbacks, but it's a proven product at this point. We're not seeing issues. We've had all the learnings that we need to have in terms of new product development and getting them out on the ramp. But pushbacks to me have been a game changer for some of my accounts and going electric for sure.
Yeah.
One of the cool things, Matt, about the B series tractors and electric is if you get a B250, you're using one motor, one controller, right? You get a B350 using one motor, one controller. Same motor, same controller. You get a B650, you're using two motors, two controllers. Same motors, same controllers. B950, you're using three motors, three controllers. So you're using the same components. You're just getting bigger and getting more, right?
Yeah.
And that's a benefit to our customers that are buying these things and replacing fleets where they're buying a small, a mid, and a large size tractor, as they like to refer to them. So if you're buying a 350, a 650, and a 950, there's a lot of cross-contaminating of the same components. So it's easier for them to only have to stock one part than to have to stock three different parts, right? And
Yeah.
so they're finding a big advantage in that with the electric pushback tractors that we're building in that B series. And so that's been a big advantage to them.
Yeah, and I would even go to say that with the electric pushbacks, from my standpoint and what I'm seeing and hearing from the accounts that I manage, is that it's an easier way to introduce electric to the ramp. Loaders, while we can make them electric, there's a very traditional stance in the industry for internal combustion on loaders, and some places are adopting it and some people aren't. But from a passenger standpoint, I've had more requests for the electric pushbacks, especially on the 250, 350 sizes, and more people even more so looking at it like, okay, can we combine this with an amp cart in a location that doesn't have chargers yet? Because when you're talking about B250s and 350s, from a financial standpoint, it's an easier investment than going in with a Commander 30, right? That combined with, electric cargo tractors or baggage tractors and so forth, I think we're going to see a lot of those packages happen probably this year than maybe we have in the past, because we're having more available products in the electric lineup.
So is your team also managing electro products?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. So you're doing the service for those as well.
That's correct. It's all under one team.
Okay, nice. Yeah, and so what is a like electro and a B250 electric and a B350 electric, like what does the maintenance look like on those compared to an internal combustion pushback?
Well, I mean, obviously, so I was going to talk about a little bit about the commonality also between the B series tractors. We tried to make it so that the operator, when they sat down in the driver's seat, there's nothing any different between the combustion engine and the electric engine, the electric package, right? So from a functionality and operational standpoint, everything's the same.
So if I know how to do know how to operate a B250 combustion, I'm going to know how to get into
You're
a
hopping
B250
in,
electric.
buttons are all the same.
No problem.
Everything's the same,
Okay.
correct. So we tried to put a lot of emphasis around keeping that common across the different platforms of the tractors, and because it helps with the end user and their training, right? The companies, because the turnover that the airline industry sees is massive, right? And so today you're training one person, the next day you're training somebody different. Well, this allows the companies to have a sustained training program that it's this tractor, it's that tractor, it's the same tractor, but now that this one's electric, you're going to charge it instead of going and putting diesel in it or gas in it, right? From a maintenance standpoint, on the B series tractors versus the electros, there's not a lot of there's not a lot of moving parts when you talk about electric versus diesel, right? So electric wise, you're not going to have nearly as many moving pieces because you don't have all the lubricants. You don't have all of the labor intensive items, right? You still have your wear items, but as far as the batteries go, you're going to maintain those batteries by properly charging them and plugging them in on routine schedules. As don't let them get dead. Don't let them overcharge.
Yeah, we talked about
Capital,
Yeah.
bold, underlined letters. Do not let it go dead.
Yeah, don't deplete them so many times and don't overcharge them. I always think about Tesla seems to be the big one of the world, right? Most people don't realize, but they're only using 60% of those batteries in their cars. It's the same thing with most of the electric equipment out there. The manufacturer of the battery doesn't give you 100% of that capability of that battery. They're going to give you a percentage of it so that you can't hurt that battery, right? So you might not ever be using the top 10% and the bottom 10% of that battery, because if they give it to you, you're going to deplete it and you're going to kill the cells faster.
Yep.
So from a maintenance perspective, as long as you maintain your moving pieces and parts, you're going to have your front ends, your suspensions, things like that. It's going to need to be lubricated and greased, and your routine maintenance on breakdown as far as items and componentry breaking based off of usage or abuse or neglect, right? I think your overall maintenance on an electric piece of equipment goes down as compared to a diesel. And as far as electro goes, that product's been around forever.
Yeah.
It's very rare for us to go work on electro unit unless it's some high power Fidelity or somebody that's got a private jet and they want us to come out and do a service to it, and just so they can say, hey, it's been serviced. It's not something that you get a lot of, hey, this is broken, I don't know how to work on it, because it is so easy to work on. Most companies just hire local forklift companies to work on them. There's not a lot involved with them. There's not a whole lot of real mechanical pieces to it. You got a pickup system, you got a battery power that powers the pickup system, and you got a winch, right? And you're going to drive it. So there's just not a lot to it to fail. And when it is, it's typically something that's you don't have to have a master technician in order to fix it.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, anything else, guys? Is there anything else that I haven't covered today that we want to talk about Oshkosh service? Or I guess from my perspective, from an Exceed perspective, Oshkosh service is outstanding. Right.
Thank you.
And that's the reason I wanted to come and talk to you today about that. And I interviewed Textron GSE recently about service, and I'm trying to do a little bit of a push to get service out there. We've talked about all the sales aspect, and we even had a little bit today. Thanks to Patrick.
Yeah,
he brought a little sales.
Well, hey, speaking of service and Exceed, we've got to give our boy Javier a shout out, right?
Yeah, we do.
We got to make sure Javier gets his love. We all love Javier.
We do. And Javier is, he comes to all the training. Well, he goes to most of the trainings. He's Oshkosh certified and all that kind of stuff. So Exceed can go out, and we can actually commission a unit on behalf of you guys.
We do, yeah.
And
year over year, Javier is the number one attended person to all Oshkosh trainings, guaranteed.
Yeah, exactly. That's
guaranteed.
Right. Yeah. And so he's here. So if y'all, want to meet the famous Javier, all you do is come to an Oshkosh training. So anyway, so that's the reason I wanted to have you on today. So if there's anything else that we want to talk about as far as Oshkosh service, what kind of separates you all out, I think we've done a pretty good job going over that. But if I've missed anything, please, this is kind of your time to say.
No, I thank you, Matt, for having myself on, having Patrick on. I truly do believe that service will set the difference between you and your competitors, and it will be the piece that all your customers are going to look to you for is what type of service can you provide, how do you provide it, and how seriously do you take our problems when we have problems. And it's a partnership. Your customers aren't just customers; they're partners in your business, and we look to our customers to provide feedback to us to improve our product every day. I mean, we don't always get it right. The engineers that are designing it don't always hit a home run. The service technician at the end of the day don't always diagnose it properly. They might miss it every once in a while, but we're really good at taking the ownership of that and working with our partners to come to a better solution so there's not the same problems moving forward.
Yeah, that sums it up, man.
Yeah, how do I follow that up?
You can't. I think we should just end it right there. That was a beautiful speech. I don't know how much you rehearsed that while we were out to lunch, kind of in your head.
Again, why did you have me on episode 3? I don't know. We're just...
No, that was awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. Thank you, Oshkosh, for always allowing me to use your facility and talk to your people. But anyway, this has been Matt, Joe, and Patrick for the GSE podcast. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thanks again.
Thanks.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the GSE podcast. We hope you found it informative and engaging. If this episode resonated with you, please share it with your colleagues and peers in the ground support equipment community. Your support is invaluable to us. We'd appreciate it if you could take a moment to rate and review our podcast. Your feedback not only encourages us, but also helps expand our reach within the GSE community. Keep an eye out for more episodes as we continue to explore the dynamic world of ground operations, bringing you the latest trends, insights, and stories from the industry. Thank you for listening to the GSE podcast. Until we meet again, stay grounded and keep pushing forward.